Listen up, meat shields, because it's time. The most demented clown who ever lived is back from the grave once again. And I'm here to tell you that his latest crime spree isn't as bad as you might have heard. It's worse. You know, our boy Art doesn't waste any time, so we won't either. Now, let's get right into some of the most gruesome kills that the world has ever seen, as we break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Art the Clown in Terrifier 3. It's a few nights before Christmas in a quiet suburban neighborhood, and I'm sure nothing terrible will happen here at all. The parents are sound asleep while their young daughter Jules walks in, saying that she heard someone up on the roof. Of course, her mom thinks that it's all in her head, but boy oh boy, is that about to be her biggest mistake. A little while later, Jules wakes up to more noises coming from somewhere inside the house, and sure enough, when she looks downstairs, there's Santa just kind of standing there in front of the tree. Something about Kris Kringle here seems a little bit off. So the girl takes cover behind a door, watching as Santa pulls an axe out of his bag and starts making his way upstairs. Next up are dear old mom and dad, and Jen here wakes up annoyed at the sound of some moist thwacking coming from the other side of the bed, but imagine her surprise when she looks over and sees old Artie Claus burying the hatchet in her husband's skull. Screaming, the woman runs for her life as our boy does a classic "Here's Artie" through the bedroom door, but she doesn't make it far before he axes her what she wants for Christmas. Psycho Santa decks the halls with her blood as he brutally hacks off the woman's arm, before finally doing her in with a chop to the noggin. After a hard night's work, Art takes a break to enjoy some milk and cookies, and even cleans the dishes after he's done, and that makes 2 down with 14 more to go. Okay, well, I guess one thing's for sure. This family was definitely on Santa's naughty list. Now, if you know anything about Art the Clown, then it's pretty obvious that these folks were completely screwed as soon as he showed up. You can't just take Art down by regular means, because he has no problem surviving attacks that would stop a regular person. And even if you go for the head, he'll just resurrect and somehow come back again. He's strong enough to rip a human body apart with his bare hands, but most of the time he prefers to catch his victims by surprise, and carries around a big bag of weapons filled with axes, hammers, and flamethrowers, maybe even Tommy guns, so you never really know what he's going to bring to a fight. Now, with that being said, it is still possible to stop him for a while if you do enough damage. He's also still subject to the laws of physics, meaning that you can kick or shove him off balance, and use your surroundings to help you escape. Waking up in the middle of the night with this clown in your bedroom is going to be a terrifying situation to say the least. And that's why the best way to survive an encounter with Art is to avoid ever having an encounter with him in the first place. Now, her kid mentioned footsteps on the roof, and since it's the holiday season, you figure, okay, she's just thinking of Santa, but after seeing that your dumbass husband left the front door open all night, you might as well take a look around before immediately going back to bed. That probably wouldn't have saved them anyway, but at least they wouldn't have been caught sleeping in bed with time for Art to get a free kill. When she woke up to Art axing her husband, Jen here needed to let her survival instincts take over and use his body as a meat shield by forcefully shoving him towards the clown, which should hopefully knock him off balance. We're gonna have to rely a lot on RNG during these battles, but there's a chance that Art might drop his weapon in this moment, and if that happens, then we're definitely picking that bad boy up to use against him. Side note, we have to remember that whenever somebody does a "Here's Johnny" moment, you have a free shot at their hands, face, and eyes. So use this opportunity to temporarily blind them. An extra second or two might have been all she needed to get out through the front door, but that would have still left Jules to worry about. Now, what Mom here didn't notice is that Art left his big bag of death right there underneath the Christmas tree. All that she had to do was reach in there, and she would have probably found some sort of devastating weapon that she could have used to fight back. Remember though, going for a kill shot is probably a waste of energy when incapacitating him works just as well. Instead, we can also focus on his arms and legs, because if he's too injured to chase after you or swing a weapon, then you can escape while he regenerates and live to see another day. If you think what happened to that family was bad, then trust me, you ain't seen shit. And now it's time for Art to terrorize the town once again. The film jumps back to 5 years earlier, where an unlucky officer comes across Art's headless body in the basement under the Terrifier ride. Dispatch says that backup is on the way, but it won't be soon enough, because the minute that this guy takes his eyes off of it, the body stands up and starts choking him out, even taking 2 bullets straight to the chest without flinching. That makes 3 down, with 13 more to go. Art staggers onto a subway car, holding the man's severed head in place of his own. The clown makes his way over to the psychiatric hospital, where the security guard hears a blood-curdling scream coming from Victoria's cell. You remember Vicky, right? The one who got her face eaten off by Art and then went all crazy on that reporter? Well, she just gave birth to Art's head. And now they're both chowing down on what's left of the unfortunate nurse who crossed their path. Cackling in the guard's face, the woman pins him up against the wall just as Art's headless body comes strolling in. And they both take turns using their bare hands to absolutely tear his face apart, all while baby Art is just over there smiling on the floor. That makes 4 down, with 12 more to go. Now that they're all reunited and it feels so good, they take the train back to the abandoned house where Art has his evil lair, even taking some pictures for an excited cosplayer before killing him off screen and stealing his hat and bicycle horn, making 5 down with 11 more to go. After repeating some not so positive affirmations in the mirror, Icky Vicky here decides to take a quick bath in a tub full of her own blood, while Art takes a load off in a rocking chair up in the attic, and both of them remain in those exact spots for the next 5 years. Back in the present day, our girl Sienna, the Art Slayer here, is just coming home from a long stay at the Grippy Socks Hotel. She's staying with her Uncle Greg and Aunt Jess, and their young daughter Gabby, who looks up to Sienna as her cool older cousin. The girl's excited to show her the bedroom they set up with all of her favorite fantasy-themed decorations, but little do they know that the demons of Sienna's past are about to return. While they're having a family reunion, a pair of demolition workers pull up to Art's crib, totally clueless that this place is a trap in more ways than one. Jackson here decides to scare his buddy with a made-up story about a psychotic killer who used to live there, but they still need to clear the place before it gets knocked down. So Dennis heads upstairs while his partner checks out the first floor. Well, it isn't long before these two each find something strange, with Jackson noticing a flickering light that leads him to discover Vicky's body, and his partner crossing paths with a creepy clown upstairs in the attic. As they both lean in for a closer look, Art suddenly reaches out and grabs Dennis by the face, throwing him into a wall, while Vicky stabs his buddy in the neck with a shard of broken glass. Jackson gets the less painful death as this horrifying ghoul quickly finishes him off. But the guy in the attic is not so lucky. Forcing him down, Art uses a massive nail to pin his hand straight to the floor and then bites off 2 fingers from the other one like he's eating little piggies in a blanket. Whipping out the box cutter, he brutally slices open the man's scalp and tears the 2 halves apart until his entire face peels right off his skull, making 7 down, with 9 more to go. Alright, you guys, let's talk about something serious for just a moment. Have you ever witnessed a car accident or been involved in one yourself? Accidents can be scary and leave you feeling overwhelmed, especially if you're injured. And let's face it, dealing with insurance companies in the aftermath of an injury can be a real hassle. Tons of paperwork, and the stress of getting better can make it hard to focus on what truly matters, which is your health. Here's where a strong team like Morgan & Morgan can come in. They specialize in helping people who've been seriously injured get the compensation they deserve. They're known for fighting for their clients and achieving incredible results. Like, for example, just recently, they secured a whopping $12 million for a car crash victim in Florida. That's 34 times what the insurance company initially offered. Imagine the difference that kind of money could make in your life. Oh, and the best part is that you won't pay Morgan & Morgan a dime unless they win your case. They work on a contingency fee basis, so you have peace of mind knowing that there's no upfront cost. And let me tell you, not all of us can afford the representation that we deserve. So if you've been seriously injured in an accident, Saw game, or Sinister Death game, and you think you might have a case, don't let the insurance companies walk all over you. Morgan & Morgan might be able to help out. You can click the link at forthepeople.com/beat. The link is also in the description below, or you can hit the QR that's on the screen. It's so easy, and it could potentially change your life. Thanks, Morgan & Morgan, and now, back to the show. Okay, this right here is the definition of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. There must be a reason why Art chose to come back just when Sienna got out of the hospital, but it doesn't make much of a difference for these two. It's always a bad idea to split up, especially in a dangerous place like an abandoned building, and boy, did they underestimate just how dangerous it actually was. Maurice here in the bathroom never stood a chance. It looks like she cut some sort of artery, causing him to bleed out in just a matter of seconds, but as for his buddy upstairs, he actually might have had some options. When Art reached out to grab his face, that's when you quickly do a 180, hit him with a shoulder throw, and send him flying out the top floor window that was right behind them. This wouldn't kill him, of course, but it at least gives you a chance to get away. Now, when he chucked the guy into the bookshelf, all of that stuff that fell to the ground could have been used against him. Just take one of those big nails from the floor, and when he reaches down to grab you, shank him with it to buy another chance to escape. You'll still have to get past his creepy girlfriend blocking the exit, but if you pick up a chair and sprint straight into her, it should be enough to knock her down while you run for the door. The box cutter on his tool belt that Art eventually used to slice off his face could have also worked as a weapon if he had any survival instincts. But once he got pinned to the floor, it was basically all over. They might not have survived the fight, but there's something interesting I noticed here that could help us up in later battles. It seems like every time Art here gets reanimated, there's some kind of electrical anomaly that happens at the same time. When he was reborn as a baby head back at the hospital, it was during a lightning storm, and here we saw the lights flickering even though the building didn't have any power. Now, as a general rule, we know that supernatural entities like demons can influence and manipulate electromagnetic fields. What's most likely happening here is that these energy bursts are sort of like a demonic defibrillator that reanimates Art's dead body, allowing him to return from the underworld and go back on another crime spree. And if that is the case, then there might be a way that we could use this knowledge to stop him for good. What we need to do is stop Art from being affected by the electrical surge, and to do that, we need a Faraday cage. Now, we've talked about these before, but basically a Faraday cage is a box made out of conductive material like aluminum foil that blocks out electromagnetic fields. All that they have to do is go to the nearest grocery store and get every box of aluminum foil that they have on the shelf. Then, if they can take Art down again for a long enough period of time, like by decapitation, they need to wrap his head and body in a thick layer of foil. As long as they make sure that he's completely wrapped up with no gaps, there's a chance it could stop the demon's powers from being able to resurrect him. It's a long shot, but it couldn't hurt to try. Back at her aunt's house, Sienna here is just trying to get through a normal dinner with the fam, but she keeps having visions of her dead friend Brooke, who blames the girl for getting her killed. A lot like Jack from American Werewolf in London. The zombie keeps asking her to pass the rice, so our girl needs to excuse herself before she has a full-blown meltdown. But she's not the only one who's still dealing with the trauma of Art's last rampage. Her younger brother Jonathan here is in college now, and he keeps getting harassed by his roommate's girlfriend Mia, a true crime podcaster who has an unhealthy obsession with the Miles County Clown. Big Sis calls to check in, saying how she's looking forward to seeing him again over the holiday, but Gabby can tell that there's something on her mind. They decide to do some face painting to help her relax, but what they don't know is that Art is already working on a creative project of his own. Down in his evil lair, he puts together a device that shoots liquid nitrogen out of a tank and tests it out on a poor little rat, making 8 down with 8 more to go. Later that night, at a bar somewhere in town, a mall Santa is enjoying some attention from the ladies, but there's someone else who wants to sit on his lap. After spotting him through the window, Art comes barging in with his own bag full of toys, and starts acting all excited when Santa tells him to come on over. This guy is a true professional, so he refuses to break character even when Art yanks on his beard. The bartender makes the mistake of asking what's in the bag, and Art hears like, "I thought you'd never ask," pulling out his little bicycle horn and honking it in all of their faces. As the shenanigans continue, the bartender starts to get annoyed, and he asks Art if he can see some identification. Well, the clown shows him an ID that he stole from a construction worker, but Santa insists that it's good enough. A choice that he immediately regrets when Art spits the drink back in his face, and he starts going to the little clown's room right there in his lap. Now, even Santa here is ready to crash out, and the bartender starts telling him to get lost. But before they even know what's happening, Art pulls out the blicky and shoots the two men dead, leaving only him and Santa Claus to settle things between themselves. Terrified, the man begs for his life, desperately trying to appeal to Art's human side. But instead of letting him go, the clown strips him out of his costume and ties poor Santa here up to a chair. He's almost ready to spread some holiday fear, but there's one last thing that he needs to complete, the outfit, and that's Santa's signature white beard. Reaching into his bag, he takes out the liquid nitrogen sprayer and starts freezing the man's legs and arms, all while he screams in excruciating pain. With his body frozen solid, Art grabs a hammer and starts shattering pieces of this man's limbs apart like glass, only to grab the tank again and spray a blast straight through the man's head. Taking the hammer, he shatters half of the poor guy's skull while he's still alive, peeling the beard straight off of his face before finally sticking a big ol' carrot in place of his missing nose. And that makes 11 down with 5 more to go. Okay, I gotta give Santa props for keeping it professional, but you have to realize that something's wrong when the guy has blood all over his hands. Last time I checked, it's supposed to be Christmas, not Halloween. When Maurice Jackson over here showed the bartender a wallet that clearly wasn't his, that should have been the moment when he silently called the cops. Now, when Art pulls out the Glock, you know he's done playing around. At that moment, Santa needed to quickly roll across the bar and use it for cover. The other guy's name was Smokey, so you know he might have a lighter on him. If he takes a bottle of alcohol and a rag, he can make a Molotov cocktail to throw at Art's feet, and then get out of there while he goes up in flames. Once he had him tied to a chair, that's when things got a little more complicated. It looks like the rope was tied too tight for him to struggle loose, meaning that his only hope of survival was to topple over and break the chair itself. Art would try to interfere, but he could use a piece of the broken chair to fight him off, battling his way over to the bag of tricks to get a better weapon, and then focus on damaging him badly enough that it creates an opportunity to escape. Speaking of better weapons, Art might not realize it, but his new toy could actually be extremely effective if somebody used it against him. What he's using here is a tank filled with liquid nitrogen, an extremely cold, cryogenic liquid. When sprayed onto the human body, it freezes the tissues almost instantly, turning the water within the tissues into solid ice. This rapid freezing causes the ice crystals to form inside of the cells themselves, causing them to expand and rupture in a process known as cryonecrosis, making them extremely fragile, and turning the normally flexible tissue into something as brittle as glass. The thing is, liquid nitrogen creates temperatures that are so cold that all cellular activity comes to a total stop, meaning that Art won't be able to heal. It took him a little while to recover after being Leonardo decapitated, so you can only imagine how long it might take if we shatter him into a million pieces. Now, if we want to be extra safe, we can use those pieces and store them in a cryogenic chamber, and hopefully never have to deal with Art again. Talking to his wife, Uncle Greg mentions how he doesn't like Gabby spending so much time with her big cousin. He's worried that the girl could be dangerous if her visions start to come back, but her aunt still refuses to give up on her. Meanwhile, Sienna here is up writing in her diary, where she finds a letter that Jonathan sent her after their battle with Art. In it, he explains how the evil clown gets his supernatural abilities by acting as a servant for a demonic spirit. but Sienna is the good counterpart with the power to defeat him. It's sort of like a Harry Potter against Voldemort type situation, and their only hope to stop it is to slay the demon's vessel before it's too late. The next day, Sienna and Gable head down to the mall to do some Christmas shopping. They're checking out the stores, trying to find something for Uncle Greg, when Sienna hears a horrifyingly familiar jingle come over the speakers. It's America's favorite hit record, The Clown Cafe, and as she looks towards the entrance, she sees her old friend in his new costume playfully waving hello. Petrified, all she can do is stand there silently crying until Gabby finally snaps her out of it. There's no way to be sure that it was him just yet, but it wasn't long before they get their proof. After finishing up at the mall, Sienna goes to visit her brother Jonathan at school. She wants him to come over to their aunt's place a few nights early, but J-Man turns her down, saying how he's already going to a party later that night. That's when Jonathan's roommate and his art-obsessed girlfriend show up, and the girl immediately starts fanning out when she recognizes her favorite celebrity. Before she can even say a word, the girl starts going off about how she needs to sit down for an interview. But Sienna here is having none of that and quickly puts Mia in her place for being so inconsiderate. Storming off, she finally decides to tell her brother that Art is back, but he's not sure if he wants to believe it. He'd rather try and move on with their lives, but she has to remind him about the letters he wrote when he was still taking things seriously. She knows that his research matches up exactly with everything that's been happening and correctly guesses that the demonic spirit must be using Victoria as its new vessel. They can't run, they can't hide, and there's no one they can call for help, which means that their only choice left is to fight. But there is one thing that they still have going for them that Art doesn't know about: Sienna's magical sword that's buried underneath the Terrifier ride. Our girl leaves to get the weapon before it's too late, warning her brother to be extra careful in case the clown comes for them first. Okay, Sienna is in a tough spot here because it's hard to get people to believe that Art's back when she can't even believe it herself. But if she was thinking clearly, back at the mall, there was a way that she could have proven it right there on the spot. She couldn't see his face, but she could see that his hands were covered in blood, and that's good enough reason to call security if you ask me. All she had to do was point him out to a security officer and watch from a safe distance to see what happened next. If he pulled out some kind of Looney Tunes weapon and attacked him with it, then she'd know that Art was back on the loose and could warn her family without coming off as crazy. Splitting up from Jonathan is the worst idea yet, because this is definitely not the kind of situation where you can be half in or half out. Now, I'm pretty sure that Art cannot teleport through walls, although we have seen him invade Sienna's dreams once upon a time, Freddy Krueger style. Since there's no way to be sure what the limits are, it's better to be safe than sorry, and go around the house making sure to lock all the doors and windows. That probably won't stop him for long, but at least that way you'll have a heads up that he's coming. By gathering everyone up and being prepared for the attack, they're evening the odds as much as anyone possibly can in a battle against two demonic clowns. Then all that's left to use is her magical sword to kick their asses. It's not going to be easy, but she's going to have to fight them again sooner or later, so they might as well get ready instead of trying to pretend like it isn't true. Back at his dorm, Jonathan here starts absolutely freaking out, convinced that his sister must be going crazy, and now maybe he is as well. As for Sienna, she comes back to the house with the sword in a gift-wrapped box, hiding it behind the tree when Gabby almost catches her. The girl notices that her hands are dirty, but she lies about how she fell down on the way home, and quickly heads up to the bathroom to get cleaned up. What she doesn't realize is that Art just showed up at the Beta House Christmas Bash, the same party where her brother is supposed to be going. But there's another unsuspecting victim who he decides to visit first. Before the party, Jonathan's roommate Cole tries calling to see if he's still coming out tonight, but now the kid is not picking up the phone. His girlfriend clearly didn't get the message when Sienna let her have it, and she's still hell-bent on trying to get J-Man on her podcast. But they have no idea that her real dream guest is already in the house. That's right, the Miles County Clown himself is standing right outside their door, and he eavesdrops in while Mia here imagines what it would be like to meet him face to face. Well, she won't have to imagine for very long, because Art can tell that these two are about to get it on, and he just decided to make all of her fucked up dreams come true. Back at the house, the girls are playing some board games when they notice something on TV. It's a news report about the explosion at the mall, and when an eyewitness claims he saw a weird guy in a Santa costume at the scene of the crime, Sienna knows that only one maniacal mime could be responsible. Our girl starts to panic, finally admitting that the clown is back as she desperately tries to warn them that they're all in danger. Even the parents still aren't sure if they actually believe her, but she insists on calling Jonathan right now. And even though she can barely explain what's going on, he promises to get there as soon as he can. After Sienna finally calms down, Aunt Jess gives her something to help her sleep, convinced that it's all in her niece's mind. They're starting to regret even letting her stay there, but Uncle Greg still heads out to pick up her brother, never suspecting that it's the last time they'll ever see each other alive. Meanwhile, Art follows the roommate over to the showers, where he and his girlfriend start to get down and dirty, before pulling out a chainsaw from his big bag of toys. But if you think you know what's about to happen next, just wait. Their only warning is the sound of the chainsaw starting before Art blasts right through the glass and gives Cole here the old Ethan Winters hand surgery. He's actually able to put up a decent fight, but it doesn't last long before he completely loses a couple fingers. And Art slices off one of his legs as he tries to hobble away. While her man is bleeding out on the floor, Mia finally gets that face-to-face encounter that she always dreamed of as Art cuts open her chest, slices her stomach, and then just starts tearing apart her face in one of the most brutal attacks that you've ever seen on film. While she's still alive, he leans in and gives her his holiday glasses before finally finishing her off. But he's not done yet. Cole here is still struggling on the floor, and after tearing his other leg off, Art takes that chainsaw and puts it right up to his tailpipe, cutting him almost completely in half. While their bodies lie steaming on the floor, Art lies down to make a snow angel with their blood and guts. That makes 13 down, with 3 more to go. Okay, well damn, I guess it's true when they say don't meet your heroes, especially when that hero is actually a bloodthirsty demonic clown. These two didn't really do anything to get Art's attention here, he just happened to be walking by and decided that he had time for another kill. When you're in the shower and you hear a chainsaw revving up, it might be time to take some action. I don't know. That's just me. Now, Art was really working with a heavy advantage here. He literally caught them with their pants down and had them cornered in a tightly confined space with nowhere to run or take cover, making it almost impossible to fight back. On top of that, he's using an absolutely horrifying weapon that's going to be deadly if he lands a single hit. As for these two, they had nothing but their bare hands and each other to use as meat shields. That's why the first thing you need to do is get out of the shower and into the larger area where you have more room to work with. There wasn't much that the roommate could have done besides try to dodge the attack, but while he was struggling for the chainsaw, Mia had a few options for what she might have done instead. He was only working with one hand at that point, so she could have at least tried to help wrestle the chainsaw away from Art, or she could have shoved her boyfriend forward, using his body to knock Art off balance and creating a chance for her to escape. Now, once they're successfully out of the shower, the next step is to escape in the direction that makes the most sense, either through the exit that's straight to their left or into the next room if they have to run. If they did run into the next room, they'd find Art's bag of tricks around the corner, and it's never a bad idea to reach in there and grab a random weapon from the goodie bag. Actually, for most of these attacks, Art keeps showing up with the perfect weapon to fight him with if you were able to get your hands on it. So besides just trying to get away, knocking the chainsaw out of his hands is always a perfectly viable option. Then they can use it to take off his head or limbs, and he'll have to spend some time recovering before he can come after them again. Sometime in the middle of the night, Gabby wakes up to a strange noise coming from somewhere in the house, and she can't resist the urge to go and check it out. Meanwhile, her father arrives at the dorms to pick up Jonathan, but when he tries calling him, the kid is acting strange. And what he doesn't realize is that it's actually the demon on the other end of the phone. In a dream, Sienna relives the memory of the day when her dad first drew her as an angel warrior, ready to fight the forces of evil with her badass flaming sword. The girl loved it, but when she tried to take the picture, her father's face turned red as he held onto it with an iron grip, able to see the horrifying battles that she'd eventually have to endure. Now an adult, she finds herself standing in the middle of a hellish forge, where she witnesses a statue of Mary forcing a demonic blacksmith to craft her armor and sword, before finally waking up back in her own bed. It's just before 2 in the morning and she can hear the parents arguing about her downstairs. Staying quiet, she sneaks down as the voices start growing louder, saying that they should kill her while they have the chance. But it's already too late by the time she realizes what's actually going on. Turning into the kitchen, she's horrified to discover Victoria standing at the oven, while Art's busy nailing the roommate's headless body up to the wall. Panicking, she immediately rushes back to the stairs, but Art quickly catches up and drags her back down. She manages to kick him off, but he picks up the girl and chucks her through the coffee table. And while she's desperately reaching for the sword, he bashes her over the head with his mallet, knocking her out cold. When Sienna wakes up, she finds out that she's been tied to a chair with duct tape covering her mouth. Her Aunt Jess is in the same position on the other side of the room, and there's a scary bloody object placed on the table in between them, making it clear that the clowns have something truly terrible in store. Art gives our girl a playful smack on the head as he walks over to hang some of the roommate's guts up on the tree. And when she looks up, she sees Uncle Greg's severed head placed on top with the star sticking out of his skull. Standing up, Vicky warns Aunt Jess not to scream as she rips the duct tape covering her mouth. There's still one more family member missing, but that's when Art opens the present in the middle of the room, revealing a human skull in a cage, with all the flesh eaten off by the demon's pet rats. Now that they've given her a present, the ghoul says that she wants one back, and the woman hawk-tuas straight into her empty eye socket as the final statement of resistance, knowing that she's done for. That's when Art grabs a thick glass tube, brutally hammering it straight down the woman's throat just after she begs Sienna to avenge her family. There's nothing that Sienna can do but watch as they take the rats and place them into the tube, heating up one end with a blowtorch so that they'll be forced to go inside the woman's body, and letting them eat her alive before finally slitting her throat as the rats all come falling out of her neck. But Sienna still has one more last move up her sleeve. Okay, talk about the worst Christmas ever. I guess Aunt Jess and Uncle Greg should have kept their distance after all. Then they'd be opening presents in the morning without the slightest idea that these crimes against humanity were even possible. But just like always, you and your demonic stalker clowns just had to ruin it for everybody. I've got some bad news, Sienna. I just got off the phone with the North Pole and Santa says that you up. Now, I had a feeling that we were all doomed right when you let poor little defenseless Jonathan over here stay at school all alone when you knew that Art was out to get him. You were serious enough about his safety to go dig up a magical sword from the place where you survived falling down a portal to hell. So, are we really taking any chances here? Just tell that little twerp that the party's canceled before it ends up turning into his own funeral. Then, later that night, when you're absolutely positive that Art is indeed back, you think the best thing to do is to have everybody split up while you intentionally put yourself into a deep sleep? I'm sorry, but what the f***? Is now really the best time for a power nap? You left everyone in the house totally defenseless when you were the only one with enough experience to know how much danger they were really in. And to top it all off, you left the one weapon powerful enough to defeat them in a box underneath the Christmas tree. What was even the point of that? It's not like carrying a gift-wrapped box up to your room around the holidays is suspicious, and if you ask me, I think it's a much worse idea to leave it somewhere out of reach. All that it did was create an opportunity for Art to get to it first, and you're lucky that it didn't happen, otherwise you'd be completely screwed. I would have had that thing on me at all times and been pounding caffeine until the clown was dead for real this time. But since you didn't trust your instincts, it ended up getting everyone you love killed. And there's only one thing left to say when that kind of stuff happens around here, and it's sorry Sienna, but it looks like you f***ed up. With her aunt dead, Vicky goes over to Sienna and painfully forces a crown of thorns onto her head. They're trying to cause her so much suffering that she'll break down, allowing the demon to possess her body instead. And they're going to do it by brutally killing everyone that she loves. That's when they reveal that Gabby is still alive, and Sienna offers to give up if they'll let the girl go, but Vicky here isn't looking to negotiate. As for the skull, Art picks it up and puts it above the fireplace wearing her brother's glasses, hitting her with the final reveal that they got Jonathan after all, and the demon starts trying to possess Sienna Sienna in her moment of weakness, but somehow she's able to resist. Frustrated, the clowns turn on the only person who she has left, but that's when Gabby apologizes for not giving Sienna her present. Thinking that it's funny, they decide to let the girls have one last Christmas moment, and she points to the long box behind the tree. But this right here was the clown's biggest mistake. Mocking her, the clown tosses the box at Sienna's feet, telling the girl to open it herself. But of course, there's a twist, and Art comes over with a big-ass hammer, brutally smashing both of her hands into a pulp while she's still tied up. When they finally let her go, she keeps struggling to get it open even though her hands are mangled beyond belief. All while Art's still taking cheap shots at her the whole time. Until finally she opens the box and reaches inside. All of a sudden, Sienna pulls out the sword and slashes Art's throat, before cutting herself free and flinging it like a spear straight through old One-Eye's chest. While the demon's spazzing out, she pulls the sword out, sticking it straight through her mouth, finally killing her off with a classic decapitation. And that makes all 16 down, but the girls are still far from safe. Sienna asks Gabby how she knew what was in the box, and the girl admits that it's because she always opens her presents early. Their heartfelt moment is literally cut short when Artie Claus comes charging in with the chainsaw, but now Sienna is able to hold him back thanks to her trusty magic sword. Actually, Sienna starts whooping his ass right there for a minute, battling him into the kitchen until she almost makes the same mistake that got Tara killed back in Terrifier 1. But this time it only costs her a chainsaw slash to the stomach, and it's going to take a lot more than that to stop her now. Even after she loses her sword, she just starts giving Art the hands and slamming him onto the countertops. But this clown is no joke. He almost gets her by forcing her head onto the chainsaw, but it turns out grabbing Art by the balls actually works, and as the battle spills over into the next room, Art's chainsaw gets stuck in the dining room table, so he starts choking her out with the dead guy's small intestine instead. Her only choice is to go truly beast mode, forcing her to bite straight through that shit in a savage move that even Art the Clown takes by surprise. But even as he turns around to keep the fight going, our girl finally gets him right in the chest, pinning him back against the wall. Just when it looks like she has things under control, Art gives her an evil grin as the demon's blood melts straight through the floor, causing her cousin to fall into the pit. Forced to make a choice, Sienna rushes over to save her, grabbing the blade of the sword as she reaches for the handle. But she can't hold on, and both the sword and her cousin end up dropping into the portal. When she looks up, she realizes that Art is gone as well, escaping through the window into the cold, snowy night. Pulling the crown off of her head, she notices the wounds on her hands begin to rapidly heal, and vows to rescue Gabby no matter what it takes. As for Art, he's just sitting at the bus stop, waiting for the next unlucky public transport to come along. There's a woman on board reading a horror book called The Ninth Circle, but the bus driver says that he likes romantic comedies better than all that gory stuff. Well, buddy, it looks like you're in the wrong genre, because that's when Art gets on and takes a seat directly across from the nice lady, staring at her with his blank, demonic expression. Pulling out his horn, he gives everyone a honk and a big old smile. But we'll have to wait until next time to find out if Sienna ever gets her revenge. Terrifier 3. It's like Terrifier 2. Really enjoyed this one from Damon Leone and gang. I can't believe they pulled it off so close to the Joker 2 release and got more money in the theater than Joker 2. I mean, it's just, you know, clown gang, clowns rule. Where all my juggalos at? But seriously, guys, let me know down in the comments if you would have done anything differently. Don't forget to check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. I'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.